Hey everybody, as we've been going over the history of the Spectre, we recently covered the 4th death of Jim Corrigan. God, that dude just keeps dying. It's all been very interesting, and if you would like to learn more, you can subscribe to Comic Island and check out the links for the rest of our coverage of the Spectre. With all that in mind, let's continue our journey through the 2nd Spectre solo series, and the road to another DC event called Invasion. In front of a baffled Kimmy Liang and Pete Quarrel, the Spectre confirmed that he and Corrigan were no longer separate beings, but instead now shared a single body, able to transform from the human Jim Corrigan to the ghostly being of the Spectre. The Spectre then reverted back to Corrigan, and the man could do little else but despair at his current situation, knowing that now the Spectre's mission would never end, while Jim seemed fated to forever be tied to this being. He lashed out at his friend and girlfriend, kicking them both out of the office. Corrigan then attempted to take his own life, but the Spectre forced Jim to cease any such behavior by partially taking over the man's body. In this half-transformed state, the Spectre insisted that Corrigan had no choice in any of this, and suggested the man move on. Madame Xanadu then sensed a new evil brewing outside, and called out to the Spectre. Corrigan was forced to endure the Spectre transforming their body into fog, and the spirit left to find this new threat. Kimmy returned as this happened to confront Corrigan over lashing out at her earlier, only to witness this alarming transformation while Jim cried out in pain. Outside, a woman was accosted by a strange man, who seemed to crave her blood. The Spectre saved her and attacked this man, only for him to surprisingly retaliate with lasers shot from his eyes. The energy from this attack was able to damage the Spectre, and the hero was forced to do battle with this mysterious stranger for some time. The man was remarkably resistant to the Spectre's attacks. When the Spectre reached within this stranger's body to rip out his heart, the man simply encouraged the spirit, and the Spectre only pulled out maggots and worms from this terrifying individual's body. The Spectre managed to break the man's neck, but he survived this too, seriously damaging the Spectre's hand in the process, and began crawling away in an attempt to make an escape. Suddenly, the Spectre began reverting back to human form. Recognizing the danger this strange man represented, the Spectre desperately tried to explain what had happened to Corrigan, and begged him to shoot the powerful individual in the head before it escaped. Corrigan, failing to understand the threat at hand, refused the request, so the Spectre, still partially in control, and even though he was injured, managed to take control of Jim's hand and shoot the man himself. With that, the Spectre was forced to transform back into Jim Corrigan completely so he could heal his injury, at which point the police arrived. With Pete Quarrel now firmly understanding the nature of the Spectre, and with the testimony of the woman this stranger attacked, Quarrel is able to clear Corrigan of any potential charges from the police, as Jim clearly killed this man, named Kranik, in an act of self-defense, saving the woman Kranik assaulted in the process. With Corrigan's name cleared, he returned home, where Madame Xanadu introduced him to a man named Zoran, also called the Fisherman. Speaking cryptically, Zoran offered Corrigan the chance to go with him and face an evil threat together. Corrigan, for now, ignored this request and returned to his office, where Kimmy told Jim he had a total of 9 potential supernatural cases lined up for him, a surprising amount for their obscure detective agency that specializes in the occult. But Liang showed that Corrigan had appeared in a newspaper called the National Scoop that day. The paper had been covering him for some time and had taken an interest in his detective agency. Before he could contemplate the meaning of such events, a woman named Gina Sales arrived, introducing herself as a reporter for the Scoop, with a mission to turn Corrigan into a front-page star. Gina's behavior soon led to Corrigan's office being overwhelmed with calls concerning potential supernatural events, while Zoran still lingered, insisting he and Corrigan would need to work together to face the darkness around them. In response, rather than fighting the popularity, Jim apparently moved to accept it, asking Gina to put in a word out that he would be hiring more detectives. Though the Spectre was skeptical of all of this, Corrigan insisted it was a way for him to move past all their recent conflict in a more positive direction. This did, however, lead to the office being swarmed with many strange applicants. Yet in spite of this, Corrigan managed to find a new staff that seemed to make him happy. They consisted of Bug McGrew, a master infiltrator who had narcolepsy, Kim's roommate, Siner, a woman named Betty Bumpfus who had dubious claims of psychic abilities, Hassan al-Amarni, a man with a security background, and even Gina herself, who just got fired from the Scoop from getting too involved in Jim's affairs. However, just as Jim was about to celebrate the start of his new expanded detective agency, which he named Cryptica Crimes Limited, on the suggestion of Zoran, Kranik reappeared, shooting a powerful laser from his mouth, apparently returned from the dead. Corrigan managed to sneak away from the others and transform into the Spectre, and the two supernatural beings did battle in Jim's office. Once again, Kranik proved remarkably strong and resistant to injury, but the Spectre managed to possess the gargoyle perched over Madame Xanadu's home and used it to swallow Kranik whole, leaving the powerful foe entombed within the stone. Reverting back to the form of Jim Corrigan, he joined the others along with Zoran. Though Jim had been reluctant to accept the fisherman's help up until now, he now acknowledged the notion and need of having a partner to run this detective agency together, so he introduced Zoran to the rest of his employees as a partner in their now shared company. Their next client was a man named Roman Pike, who wanted to learn the identity of whomever killed his girlfriend, a woman named Jenny Dean. Corrigan put out a phone call to Pete and convinced his friend to allow Bug to do a preliminary investigation of the crime scene before the NYPD even had a chance to look. Jim then transformed into the Spectre, who traveled to the afterlife seeking answers, and once again, he encountered the Phantom Stranger. The Spectre was directed to find Jenny's spirit in the deepest, darkest depths of the afterlife, which didn't surprise the Spectre, as both he and the Phantom Stranger were well aware that most humans are unworthy of reaching the light and salvation in the afterlife. The Spectre found Jenny's tortured soul, and she explained she was murdered by Roman. So the spirit returned to the mortal world and partially transformed back into Corrigan, explaining what he had learned. Though Corrigan tried to stop him, the Spectre attacked when Pike arrived at Jim's office, turning his own face into a terrifying visage, pursuing the man into the streets, turning into a giant, and chasing him down with a face so horrifying, Roman ultimately committed suicide. His body was discovered by Corrigan, who was devastated by this outcome, once again feeling the despair of his fate. In the days that followed, Jim and the entire detective agency traveled out to the Nevada desert to investigate a series of cattle mutilations at Zoran's request. While searching for clues, they set out to camp in the desert during the night, only for a car to be flung at the group. This did not help ease tension between the new team members, as the increased presence of supernatural events piling up around them began to disturb members of the group like Armand, who didn't, perhaps rightfully, trust Jim Corrigan. After all, the detective's new employees were unaware of his dual identity as the Spectre, let alone the fact that he now shared a body with this powerful ghost. Following the path of the destroyed vehicle's trajectory, the group found the remains of two government agents dressed in black. Both men had their flesh destroyed in a way that perplexingly left both their clothing and skeletons intact, apparently the result of some protective element in the black clothing that they wore. Zolan states his theory that these events are supernatural in nature, but they appear to be the work of aliens. Early testing of atomic weapons in the 1950s have appeared to have summoned some of demonic force. The group was chased off from the camp by a swarm of bats, leading them to a cave, and causing Corrigan to transform into the Spectre away from the attention of others. While a demon menaced the group, the Spectre returned his attention to a portal the creature had summoned, and voices calling to him from across the void. Abandoning Corrigan's colleagues, the Spectre went through the portal alone. Though Zolan was correct it was indeed a mystical threat, rather than an alien one affecting Nevada, little did he know the rest of the world was facing a considerable threat in the form of actual extraterrestrials. 9 alien races had banded together and carefully orchestrated an invasion of Earth, determined to destroy the rising population of the world's metahumans. Meanwhile, in the void, the Spectre could detect the arrival of this alien threat. Before he could do anything about it, however, he was summoned by the Lords of Order, powerful primordial beings that stand against the forces of chaos. The Lords forbade not only the Spectre, but all mystically empowered super beings on Earth from intervening in the invasion. Doing so would provoke the forces of chaos, which would escalate the war and put the Earth in cataclysmic danger. So for the sake of Earth, the Lords commanded the Spectre to stop the mystical superheroes from interfering with this invasion, at any cost. With all that in mind, we'll cover the Spectre's role in the invasion event next time on Comic Island. Thanks for watching, guys, and I hope you enjoyed it.